The obsidian spires of the Dragon Emperor's fortress pierced the crimson sky like ancient fangs, their surfaces still warm from the distant battles that had raged across 3 star systems. Emperor Vorthak the Eternal had expected to return to his domain after another month of crushing the rebellious Zephyrian colonies, but the war had ended sooner than anticipated. The inferior species had surrendered after witnessing the devastating power of his fleet's plasma cannons. As his personal shuttle descended toward the landing platform, Vorthak's golden eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Soon, he would reclaim his throne and restore order to his empire. What he did not expect was the scene that awaited him in his own throne room. The massive doors, carved from meteorite stone and adorned with the skulls of conquered worlds, stood slightly ajar. Through the gap, an unusual sound drifted out, something that made the ancient dragon's scales ripple with confusion. It was singing. Vorthak pushed the doors open with one clawed hand, his 12-foot frame filling the doorway. What he saw made him freeze in absolute bewilderment. His throne room had been transformed. Where once stood his imposing obsidian throne, surrounded by the bones of his enemies, now sat dozens of small beings huddled together on makeshift bedding. They were injured, some missing limbs, others bearing the distinctive burn marks of plasma weapons. But they were alive, and they were being tended to by a figure Vorthak recognized immediately, Mino, his human maid. The small human woman moved between the wounded with practiced efficiency, her dark hair tied back as she administered medicine and changed bandages. But it wasn't just her presence that shocked him. It was what surrounded her. Advanced medical equipment lined the walls, devices that Vorthak recognized as military-grade healing pods worth more than entire planets. His personal armory had been raided, its contents repurposed into surgical tools and life support systems. Most shocking of all, the injured beings weren't just any species. They were Zephyrians, the very rebels he had been fighting. "David, hand me another neural regenerator," Mino called softly to a young human male who was carefully monitoring a complex array of scanners. David, Vorthak realized, was his former communications officer, a human who had been assigned to monitor enemy transmissions. The boy looked up from his work, revealing cybernetic implants that definitely hadn't been there when Vorthak left for war. "The Zephyrian in Pod 7 is showing improved brain activity," David reported, his voice carrying none of the fear that humans typically displayed in Vorthak's presence. "Mino, I think we can wake her up." Vorthak remained frozen, watching as his 2 human servants he had considered barely more intelligent than furniture, operated technology that some of his own generals couldn't understand. One of the wounded Zephyrians, a female with iridescent scales and multiple arms, stirred in her healing pod. Her large eyes fluttered open, and instead of the terror Vorthak expected when she saw humans, she smiled. "Mino," the Zephyrian whispered, her translator collar converting her words to standard. "You saved us. We all saved each other." Mino replied gently, helping the alien sit up. "David figured out how to reverse the neural damage from the plasma burns. I just kept everyone breathing long enough for him to work his magic." Magic. Vorthak's mind reeled. What he was witnessing wasn't magic. It was something far more impossible. It was humans displaying the kind of innovation, compassion, and technical brilliance that the Dragon Empire's propaganda had always claimed was uniquely draconic. "How?" Vorthak's voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. Every head turned toward him. The wounded Zephyrians cowered, but Mino and David stood their ground. Mino stepped forward, placing herself between the Dragon Emperor and her patients. "Your Majesty," she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of her insubordination. "I can explain. Explain how my maid has turned my throne room into a medical facility. Explain how my communications officer has apparently become a neurosurgeon. Explain how humans, supposedly primitive humans, have accomplished what my entire medical corps claimed was impossible." David stepped up beside Mino, his young face determined. "With respect, Your Majesty, you never asked us what we were capable of. You just assumed. Vorthak's claws extended involuntarily. Assumed.
What?
That intelligence was determined by scale color and wingspan, Mino said quietly. That compassion was weakness. That humans were only good for serving. The Dragon Emperor stared at the scene before him. Dozens of enemy soldiers nursed back to health by the very servants he had dismissed as inferior. Medical miracles performed with jury-rigged equipment and sheer determination. Two humans who had risked everything to save beings their own emperor had tried to destroy. The war, Vorthak said slowly. How did you know they were coming here? David held up a modified communication device. I intercepted the evacuation orders. The Zephyrians weren't retreating, they were protecting their wounded. Their own people had written them off as casualties. So we brought them here, Mino added. We knew you'd be gone for months. We thought maybe we could save a few lives while you were busy ending others. Vorthak looked around his transformed throne room. Medical charts covered his war maps. Healing pods hummed where weapons racks once stood. The air smelled of antiseptic instead of fear. And for the first time in his 1,000-year reign, the Dragon Emperor realized he was looking at something more powerful than any weapon in his arsenal. The unbreakable human spirit that turned servants into saviors and throne rooms into sanctuaries. Mino, he said finally, his voice surprisingly quiet. David. Both humans straightened, ready to face whatever punishment awaited them. Tomorrow, Vorthak continued, we discuss terms for ending this war. Permanently. He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. And next time, he added, ask me before you renovate my throne room. I might have some ideas of my own. As the Dragon Emperor walked away, Mino and David exchanged glances. Behind them, dozens of recovering Zephyrians began to sing again, this time a song of hope.